opportunity to show what you knew. Now you have the opportunity to come in and get half your points back if you want for this past quiz. I think I will have a test on this unit. I think it's Tuesday next week. Yeah. There's supposed to be two parts to it, but one of the parts I was taking a look at, and it was like gibberish. Like, it was a bad file, so it's very possible we won't have two parts to it. And then we're pretty much on course to get done with up through chapter 3, which Mr. Anderson is now doing chapter 2. And so he flip-flopped for whatever reason. And I'm sure he told me, hey, let's flip-flop, and I didn't listen to him. So, my friends, I am going to be on page 56. Page 56. So a few things just to review what we have been doing, and this will tie into what we're doing today. So we have data plotted that we've done. Desmos will do it for us nicely. We have our line of best fit. And this is what we use to make predictions, right? And then we can evaluate from what this graph is this type of situation. So what was the green one called? What do we call that green graph? What? It's not a time plot. Residual. Good. Okay, so the residual graph comes from how far above or below our line of best fit our data fits. Okay? So it tells us two different things. Now, from our regression line, we get an R value, and this value is between +1 and -1. The closer you are to either of those, the stronger your data fits the line of best fit. But then the residual graph, as long as there is not a pattern, indicates how much stronger. So it's like a type of error. This shows any type of error in our data to our line of best fit. Okay, so that was the big thing up through 2.9. Okay, so we get to a point when we're collecting data that you can see your data plotted, but then you might have something way up here or something way down here, or even something way out here. Okay, so I made those dots extremely big for a reason, because I wanted to focus our attention on it. Those are outliers of some sort. Okay, so what I mean by that is if I just had my regular line of best fit, we're going to say this is no outliers. But then if I took this one, this is going to kind of change our line of best fit a little bit. This one here really kind of changes our line of best fit with this one. And this one here changes our line of best fit like this. So see how the outliers kind of, the green and the black really adjust what our line of best fit does. The red one is this influences the X not really the Y. Okay? Whereas the green and the blacks, the green one doesn't really mess too much with our X value because it's within our data in the X direction, but it impacts our Y. The black one, the black boxed one, influences our X and influences our Y. Okay, so I'm going to put that this is within the X. Messes with Y. Okay, so this is within the X values, but it messes with our Y. This messes with both X and Y. Okay, now an outlier as it sits, if you have one outlier, take a look at it. Take a look at your data. Did you accidentally put something in incorrectly for your data? Was there like a data sheet that you got or a piece of data that you got that was truly obscure? Did somebody not fill something out correctly? Okay, so let's say you were collecting data, and let's go very simple. Let's do your shoe size to your height in inches. Pretty simple. Okay. Typically, we could say if you have a relatively big foot, you might be tall. Okay. Yes, I realize there are some people who might not be so tall, but they might have a larger foot size, and that could be an outlier in that case. But then you also have the scenario where, let's say you were collecting data, and when I ask you guys as students, hey, what's your shoe size and what's your height? Let's say someone was converting, their 5'10" to inches, but they accidentally converted it to centimeters. Okay, because the centimeter is a smaller unit of measure than an inch. So that might cause an outlier, which means you could then correct that outlier. Okay, you could convert from centimeters back to inches if you just did a little dimensional analysis. Okay, but are there things that could be a true outlier that is the real data? And absolutely. Okay, I said this before class started or started lecturing. We're very fortunate by the end of today because we're going to stop getting political ads for a little bit of time. Agree? Election's over after today. Okay.
What's your appointment?
Well, I have an appointment. Sorry. So, we talked a little bit the other day about you have people that will say, hey, I made this prediction and look what I said right. Okay, you have polls that are taken to collect data to find how an election is going to go. And a lot of times the polls are wrong. And every now and then the one guy's like, dude, see, I told you. It's like, what about the past 30 other elections you predicted you were wrong in? Just because you're right once doesn't mean you got it all down. It's getting harder and harder to do polls to collect data because it's expensive. Let's face it, a lot of times, phone call that's made to our phone that we don't recognize, we don't answer. Or you got me who answers it and I'm just sarcastic. Okay, and I imagine there's other people who are sarcastic like me. You might have people who are waiting at ballot boxes for early release, and as you are leaving, they might ask, "Could I ask who or what did you vote for? Yes or no on this, or yes or no for this person?" A lot of times, people might lie. Okay, my thing is, my vote's my vote. Who I choose and what I choose to vote for, in my opinion, is not anybody else's business. And I don't try to influence people with any of my politics because everybody is on a different path in this game we call life. I might say, hey, I want to vote for this item or this person because this falls into my thoughts. Sometimes you might vote for somebody that is the lesser of two evils. Let's face it, these days, when you look at some of these political ads, you have no idea what the heck you're voting for with a person because they're just slamming the other person. You know, don't vote for Billy Bob because he wants to slaughter kittens. Oh, I can't do that. Did Billy Bob ever say that? No. And then Billy Bob runs an ad, don't vote for John John because John John thinks it's okay to do this. Oh, what does Billy Bob believe? What does John John believe? We have no idea. They're slamming on each other. They're exploiting each other. We have no idea where people stand on stuff. So we have been subjected, because of the midterm elections, to an awful lot of politics. I imagine, and help me out because I'm not, the only social media I'm on, and I'm just on just to see people's pictures of what they ate and what their kids look like, and family pictures. But I'm on Facebook. And I have not unfriended, but stopped following people who act like they know so much about politics, therefore let's vote for this because of this. And I'm like, I know this person. This person is about as bright as a keyhole and as sharp as marble. And they're going to influence me or try and influence me who to vote for? I don't want to see that. I like talking to people about politics. I'm happy to, if someone asks me and says, hey, what do you feel about this? I'm happy to give you what my opinion is. Is my opinion the gospel truth? No. Is it true fact? No. Is it what I believe? Sure. Is what I believe the right thing? To me, maybe. To someone else? No. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that we are impacted by, influenced by, and sometimes those outliers, especially if it was a phone survey and you have that phone survey recorded, you might be able to go back to that phone survey saying, I know this person is completely being a jerk and impacting my data. So should we toss the data or should we not? It's hard to say. I can't give you the right definitive answer. Okay? I think it's if you want to play honesty, list, if you have outliers, why you think some of those outliers might have taken place. Okay? I interviewed this person I didn't think was a very qualified person because of, and go through whatever reasons, and just talk about it. But there's only a handful of patterns that we can be pretty consistent with on this world. We can be pretty consistent on when the sun rises and when the sun sets. Okay? We know throughout the years, we know, I can tell you when the sun is going to come up tomorrow at what minute. Why is that? Well, we as the human race haven't screwed up the rotation of the planet yet. It could happen. Will it? I don't know. Hope not. So outliers. So on 56 it says, we talked about how outliers You had resistant measures that were the median and the IQR. Okay, that had to go with the box and whiskers, the middle of the data, and then the middle of the top and the middle of the bottom of the data. The underlying theme of this course is the effect of individual observations are supposed to capture and feel the entire data set. We need to be consistently watchful for observations that single-handedly undermine such measures. Okay, now, I'm going to tell you this. I lived in Vegas. Oh, dang, another Vegas story. I'm sorry. I have seen this happen in Vegas, and I know that these people are employed in Vegas. There are people that can turn a table that is a winning table into a losing table quickly. They call them coolers. Okay? And I kid you not, I've seen this. I've been at a blackjack table, and I'll see a guy that comes up to the table who has absolutely no idea how to play blackjack, and dealer is showing a 6, so you're supposed to say, well, I think they might have a 16, so they have to take a hit. So if you have a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, or 21, obviously if you have a 21, you won't take a hit unless you're totally unresponsive to how the game works. But you're not supposed to take a card. There have been times where I'm like, dude, dealer's showing a 6, so I think they might have a 16 because you don't see their down card. A cooler will come up to the table and they'll have 18 and they'll take a hit. So they'll take an extra card and they'll grab the face card that if the dealer flipped over and had a 16, they would have to take a hit, which puts them at 26, which means everyone at the table would have won who didn't go over. But they call them coolers. They are just unlucky people that ruin events. I've seen people that come up to a craps table that is very much a live game, and they'll get up to the table and they'll splash people's chips down, meaning people have chips stacked up nicely and they'll throw into the middle of the table and knock a whole bunch of chips down, and it seems to change the consistency of the table, and all of a sudden you're like 7 out. It's like, that dude just, now did he really? I don't know, but I've seen it happen more often than not. Not that because I'm an avid gambler, I've just seen this quite happen quite often. So sometimes those weird, obscure things can be that outlier. Okay, recall outliers or observations in the middle of 56 are so unusual that individuals look like they don't belong. We quantified that later with the outlier boundary formulas. The scatter plot is showing 2 outliers on the Palm Beach one. On that graph on the middle of 55. Outliers must be investigated. Whether they belong in the data set is up to the judgment of the researcher. Okay? So, presidential election results for Florida. So, votes for Buchanan, votes for Bush. It appears that Palm Beach County, Florida, had far more people that voted in the Buchanan way versus the Bush way. If you look at the other data point, you had far more people in that particular county that's not labeled that voted for Bush and not Buchanan. Okay, was there something going on? Well, the things you have to look at with Palm Beach, Florida. Palm Beach, Florida is the richest county in the United States. Okay? Do rich people just vote Republican? Do they just vote Democrat? In theory, people with lots more money tend to vote more towards Republican than Democrat because Republicans feel less in taxes, smaller government. As a little glimpse of Republican. Is more government better for us or is less? I don't know. I can't tell you. Okay? I know that people sit there and will point a finger at any one individual and say, because of this person, this happened. I don't know. I'm kind of like the fiddle in the middle guy. Doesn't really matter who is in office. I continue to make money in the stock market. Yeah, but no, I continue to make money in the stock market. It doesn't really matter to me. Okay, who should I vote for? I don't know. I might write Mickey Mouse in. I kid you not, people write Mickey Mouse in very often on election day for presidential write-ins. Will I write Mickey Mouse in? No. I'm not going to waste a vote like that. But it's kind of interesting. I bet you if you look at the last presidential election, you could probably find out how many people voted for Mickey Mouse, and it's more than one. And it's kind of funny. However, it is important to observe the impact of each observation has on the strength of the relationships between the two variables. Without these two observations, correlation will be quite strong. Okay? If we add Palm Beach, it's going to change our correlation. Our R value would be changed if you had an outlier put in place. So, if we move on to page 57, they talk about this medical study. It says cigarette consumption per capita in 1930, and then the lung cancer mortality rate per 100,000. Okay, it says medical studies show the relationship between cigarette consumption per capita and the lung cancer mortality rate. There's possibly 3 outliers worth nothing here: Great Britain, Finland, and the United States. All 3 should be investigated. However, in this case, there are no errors or anomalies for the data points that would make them inappropriate for the scatter plot. Great Britain is an outlier, but it actually increases the correlation because it falls into our line of best fit. It is possible Great Britain could cause an increase in the correlation that artificially inflates the strength of the relationship between the two variables in an unfair way. The USA, however, will greatly reduce the strength of the relationship, so it's going to change the pitch, the slope of our line of best fit. Okay? Some try to argue Great Britain and the USA could wash each other out. One would raise the correlation and the other would lower it. So who cares? The example of statistical wishful thinking. We dare not to assume such things. The fact is, to study those data points more closely. Okay, outliers are not studied simply to see what went wrong. Often incredibly useful information is contained within outliers. Why does the United States have much lower lung cancer mortality rate than regression model would have predicted for such high cigarette consumption? What is happening in the United States that produced this result? Outliers can provide clues to the relationship between variables who can observe it. Okay? If you go and collect data on elections, you could get very different results depending upon areas of a city that you are in. There's times that if you walk into a lower socioeconomic area, those people might not be as likely to speak up as a more affluent area. Not because there's anything wrong with a less socioeconomic area versus a large economic area. It's just how people are. Okay? People all around have gotten goofed up by certain things. I don't like having things come in. Heck, did you all see that in the state of Arizona, they had armed guards at every ballot box location? Why in the what is going on with Arizona that you need armed people at ballot boxes? That's crazy to me. Okay, I can't say that, and I'm from Arizona, so I have to look at that going, what in the geez, paranoia or something. All right, so on page 58, finishing up this, we have considered a scatter plot shown. This is investment to GDP ratio and the unemployment rate. And that appears, this is the cluster of data between 2009 and 2010. Where the heck is 2009 on there? starts at 1948 to 2010. So towards the end, there seems to be some sort of problematic. The remaining data doesn't seem to show significant positive or negative relationship. The inclusion of the cluster appears to produce a clear negative association. So in this case, we should remove the entire cluster of outliers to see if there is a good reason to remove them. In conclusion, outliers have the potential. 1, they diminish the strength of the linear relationship, so it's going to goof up our R value. Number 2, increase the strength of the relationship. So you could have something that is an outlier, like up there, the red dot, that kind of helps our relationship. 3, creating a strong relationship from no relationship at all. So an outlier could change, our R value to a better direction towards 1 or -1. And then the change in direction of a relationship completely. So, what that basically means for letter D is if I had data like this, and then I had these outliers here, this cluster here is going to have a big impact on our line of best fit. Like our line of best fit right now should be like this with the green, but now I incorporate this blue, it's going to change that slope of the line. Okay, it's going to have a big impact. And that's talking about cluster stuff. Bottom of 58, you have a scatter plot, y versus x, and the scatter plot above, it is plausible that the outlier on the right side might create a negative correlation. So that's similar to what I have drawn up on the board. So there are definitely things that take place. Why did certain things take place? Did somebody not understand the directions? Can I ask, how many of you voted? And I'm not trying to slam, but how many of you voted? Or looked at a ballot that came in the mail? Okay? So in that envelope that was mailed to us or to our homes for registered voters, you had a tri-folded ballot. You had a tri-folded other piece of paper that was basically directions on how to figure this out. Then you had an envelope that you could put your ballot back into. Then there was a place to sign on the ballot and a place to sign on the envelope. And there's all these different things that if you forgot one signature, theoretically, they might be able to say, we're not going to count this ballot. Okay, so, they try and simplify stuff by giving you more information about it. And let's face it, we as people, well, I can tell you as a 51-year-old, I've gotten the directions to set certain things up. And what do? I try and do it without the directions first and then think, oh crap, they gave me extra pieces. Okay? So following the directions is not really ingrained in what we do as people. So by giving me more directions, you actually, in my opinion, complicated the scenario more than anything. Use a blue pen, black pen. Don't do a check mark or an X. Fill in the bubble completely. There's all kinds of things. I can guarantee that there's at least one ballot here in Colorado that the person put a check mark where the bubbles are. I think that would probably be a safe assumption. That ballot doesn't count. They didn't do it correctly. Okay. You guys are too young for this, but when Bush and Gore were in the election, like people sit there and say, oh, this past election was the most controversial ever. No. West Palm Beach, Florida, the richest county in America, pushed that George Bush beat Al Gore. It was a dead tie, and they were waiting for Florida's electoral college votes to be cast But West Palm Beach, Florida, a county smaller than Arapahoe County, decided Florida's electoral college votes, which then swayed it to make George Bush win the election. And I kid you not, they had the ballots at the time. You slid your ballot into the device, and you had to use basically like a toothpick type of mechanism and push through who you were voting for. You didn't use ink. And there was times that the count was so close in Florida that they had to sit there and look at each and every ballot in West Palm Beach, Florida. And if you're pushing through, you have, okay, it looks like the person started to push here, but then they voted here. Okay, did they make a mistake on one and want to change their mind? They were trying to go through each and every ballot, and it took a long time. And it went through the United States Supreme Court to make an overall decision on what Florida was doing was constitutional. Okay, we did not know with the Bush-Gore election until who the actual president was until about 30 days after the election itself. All the other votes, all the other people who voted, all the other things, all the other bills and vote for this and this and this, state things, they were all fine throughout the rest of the United States. But West Palm Beach, Florida, they went through all of the ballots in West Palm Beach, and they had something called a hanging chad, which was like this dangling piece of paper hanging, a little portion of paper hanging below the ballot. Was that for this or that? It was crazy. Who do I think really won? You got me. Who do I vote for? It doesn't really matter because Florida decided it. West Palm Beach, one county in America, decided the overall outcome. It could have went either way in that election. And it was so funny listening to the commentators. I mean, I think that's what built CNN and Fox News, because they were constantly on. And one side is saying, oh, this way's got to win. And another one say this side's got to win. And who was right? Well, Fox wound up being the winner because they are more of a Republican way of saying the news. So they got it right. Hey, we were right about that. Yeah, but they weren't right about all the others. So that's what I have for you. I'm sorry. I kind of went on a tangent. My stirrup's out of control. So we are going to work on 2-10. 2-10 is someplace. Looks like page 163 and 164. Work on that for next time. Friends, keep double checking. If I am missing any of your homework assignments, make sure you show them to me so I can put them in. I assure you, I'm not trying to influence your grade in a negative way by holding back your guys' grades. So I'm not that guy. I'm just trying to do what's best for everybody. Save.